confusing is that there are indeed these parts where you can read and learn, and they have their own try it questions, but these are not homework. You can do them to better understand the content, but it's not going to be graded at all. So what you need to do is to just go to the ones that says homework. Ignore the other ones. Just do the ones that says homework. So let me click one. If you click the one that has homework, you will see that there's a due date, okay? And 10 points possible means there are 10 assigned questions. And as I said, in my class, I only ask people to do 70%. Now, some of the homework sets have 11 points assigned. So what do you do in that case? Well, no, that doesn't work like that. So what you do is you can do a little bit more if the homework is easier, and a little bit less if it's hard. And what will happen is that at the end of the semester, when I grade your exams, when I give grades, I'm going to tally up all the points that you got, and also tally up all the questions I assigned, and just make the 70% as cutoff. So if you did 70% or above, you get 10 out of 10 for the homework grade. If you did less than 70%, then it will be scaled accordingly. So if you did like 63%, 63 points out of the, if you did 63%, then 63 over 70 is like 0.9. So you get 9 out of 10 as your homework grade. So something like that, okay? Make sense? All right. So today, because some of the questions in the word problems are a bit challenging, let me do a little bit before we move on to the line equations. Okay, so let's start. Some of the earlier ones are easy, so I don't want to do those. Okay. All right, so I think this is a noteworthy question to do. So let me copy this and then try to do it on a Word file. Okay. View, page width. Okay. So a phone company fee has a monthly cellular plan where a customer pays a flat monthly fee and then a certain amount of money per minute used on the phone. If a customer uses 360 minutes, the monthly cost will be $61. If the customer uses 800 minutes, the monthly cost will be $105. Now these numbers, 360, 61, 800, and 105, these will be different for you. So don't expect to copy the answer to this question and your online homework will accept the same answer, okay? So you need to know how this is done. Okay, so let's read the first question. Find an equation in the form of y equals mx plus b, where x is the number of monthly minutes used and y is the total monthly cost of the fee plan. Okay, so how do you answer that? Well, we just did something like this yesterday. And the reason I say this is think about the following. Because x is the number of monthly minutes, when x is 360 minutes, what do you get for the y? $61, right? And when x is equal to 800 minutes, what do you get for the y? 105. Because we said x is the minutes and y is the cost, right? And that means, in terms of x comma y on the plane, this means 360 comma 61. And the second one means it's 800 comma 105. Okay? You get that? And then we have to find out the equation for the line that passes through these 2 points. We did something exactly like that yesterday. How do we do that? We first have to use the formula for what? Slope. Okay, so tell me the formula for the slope. Just give me a minute. Okay. Yeah, so we agree that formula for the slope is change of y, delta y, over change of x, delta x, okay? And so let's first think about the change of y. Y went from 61 to 105. What's that? What's the change? How do you calculate the change? No, instead of that, it's 105 minus 61. We always do terminal minus initial. That's what we agreed yesterday, right? And then change of x is, x went from 360 to 800. What's that? 800 minus 360, okay? All right, so that's going to be, let's see, the top will be 44. And the bottom will be 440. Okay, that's easy. So if you cancel the 44 top and bottom, what do you get? You get 0.1. You can also just punch this into the calculator and you get 0.1. Normally I go with fractions, but this time I'll use decimals because it's a word problem, and probably that's better. Okay, so we use 0.1 for m. Now the question is, how do I find b? Well, I gave you two approaches, right? So one was to plug in the 360 for x and 61 for the y, and then find b. That was one way to do it. Another method was what? We used the point slope form. Okay, so do you remember the point slope form? Y minus y1. I don't need this parenthesis. Equals to m times x minus x1, where x1 and y1 are the first pair of points, right? This is your x1, y1, right? So you're going to rewrite this in terms of y minus 61 equals to, what's m? We just found it as 0.1. X minus what? 360. Okay. Now we have to simplify this by adding 61 both sides and multiply this out. So if I multiply 0.1 to both x and 360, I get 0.1x minus 0.1 times 360. You can use a calculator, and you get just 36 for that. But then there's a plus 61 that you move over. So it's plus 61. And that's going to give you y equals to 0.1x. What is that? 35, 25, plus 25. Okay? So that's the answer for part A. Now let's look at what part B is saying. Part B, use your equation to find the total monthly cost if 895 minutes are used. Okay? So how do you do this one? Yeah, you just plug in 895 into x, and then, okay, this is getting a bit harder. So let me use the calculator. I like to use the Desmos scientific calculator, but use your scientific calculator, okay? So what I need to do is 0.1 times 895 plus 25. And that gives you 114.5. So that's going to be 114.5. Okay, so now let's plug in these things and see if I got it correct. So here I'm saying it should be 0.1x plus 25. And this is 114. What was it? 1.5. All right. And then submit. All right, so I got it. Okay. So one down at least. Now let's move on. Similar question. These are simpler, so it shouldn't be that hard. Okay. Oh, this is a nice question. This is a time, speed, distance problem. So let's try this one. Okay, Dimitri drove home from college traveling an average speed of 67.5 miles per hour and drove back to college the following week at an average speed of 61 miles per hour. If the total round trip took 6 hours, how much time did it take Dimitri to drive from home back to college? Express the time in hours and minutes. Round to the nearest minute. Okay, so for this distance, time, speed questions, you need to first write down the basic formulas. What are the basic formulas? Can you tell me? Speed equals to distance over time. Very good. And then this, if you solve this for distance by multiplying by t both sides, it'll be distance equals to time times speed. And then if you solve this for time, what do you get? Time equals to speed over distance. Okay. So these are basic formulas. Now, you know that I do give partial credit during the exam, right? So if you see a speed, distance, time question, and you at least put these formulas, and I mean, I think it'll be like somewhere between 8 to 10 points for this type of question, okay? Then if you at least write this, you'll get 1 point. That's a start, right? So be sure to start the question by writing these formulas down and get that 1 point, okay? All right, so once you're done with the formulas, now what do? What's the approach? You make the table. Yes, you make the table. Let's insert the table. Insert the table. I am going to use this much. This much should be fine. Okay, so there are two. So home to college. There's one direction, and then there's the college to home. Okay, and then for each direction, what are we looking at? Speed, time, and distance, right? You don't have to follow this order. You could put distance, time, and speed in any order. Just do that. And then we have to start populating these things. Introduce new variables if it's unknown, and if you know something, you put something. Okay, so first, from home to college, what's the speed? What does it say? 67.5, okay? What's the time? Do we know? It's 6 total, but we don't have, yes. That'll be the home to college would be 61 for the speed. I'm talking about the time. Okay. Yeah. So for some reason, it's better to focus on one scenario, one scene, and then move on to the next one. Okay. Yeah. So we'll discuss this later. So for the time, what is it? Huh?
It says drove back to college.
Oh, home from college. Okay. All right, sorry. The thing is, college to home. Yeah, it's college to home. Thank you. This should be college to home. Thank you for catching that. Thank you. Yeah. Great, somebody's reading the question. Yeah. Mea culpa, because I was trying to solve this without reading the question. Okay, yeah, that's bad. You don't want to solve it without reading the question. Okay, so the first part of the story is that we're going from college to home. That's what's happening, right? Okay. Okay, so college to home, we are going at 67.5 miles per hour, and then what's the time? We don't know. So what do? We put x. What about the distance? We don't know it either, so we're going to put another y. Okay? Now the thing is, as I said, rarely you end up having more than 2 variables. So if you already put more than 2 unknowns, then you should be cautious when you fill this next one. You have to be very conservative. You shouldn't introduce any new variables. Okay, so from home to college, what's the speed? 61, yes. What's the time? We can't use x because x is the time that it took from college to home, right? We can't use z either because we already have two unknowns. Yes. No. That's still, if you say x1 and x2, that's still like introducing new variables. Yes. It should be 6 minus x. Why do you say so? Because it says the round trip took 6 hours, right? The round trip took 6 hours. So if college to home was x, then 6 minus x would be how much it took, okay? All right, then what about the distance? It should be y. Why is that true? Because you're going on the same route. Going to or back, it's the same route, so it's the same distance. So we can use the same thing. Okay, is this clear? All right. Now, once you populate the table, what's next? Make equations by making use of the equations that you wrote here, right? Among the three, what's our favorite one? It's this one that's our favorite because it doesn't have any fractions. The other ones have fractions and we don't like it. So let's use that. Distance equals time times speed. So over here in the first scene, what does that equation mean? Distance is what in the first scene? Distance is y equals to time is x and speed is 67.5. So it's 67.5 times x, right? So that's what you get from the first line, this one. All right, and then if you go to the second line, what is it? Y equals to 61 times 6 minus x, right? Yeah, speed times time. You can write this as time times speed, or you can also write this speed times time. It doesn't matter, right? Okay, so we have a system of equations, two unknowns, x and y, and two equations. That's perfect. If you have two equations for two unknowns, that means you can solve it. How do you solve a system? You solve one of the equations and plug it into the next one. Well, this is already solved for y. How nice. So you don't have to do any more work. You just plug in 67.5 into y. So if you do that, you're going to end up getting 67.5 x equals to 61 times 6 minus x. And that gives you 67.5 x equals to 6 times 61 is 366, and then minus 61x, okay? And then I can add 61x both sides, which will give you 67.5x plus 61x equals to 366. And then you have 128.5x equals to 366, okay? And now we'll need the calculator. So the answer for x would be x is 366 divided by 128.5, which is, so let's see, 366 divided by 128.5, which is 2.842, something like this. So it's this. Okay, what's the unit for this? Kilometers, hours, miles, hours, because if you recall, x was time, right? So this is really in hours. Okay, but then we have to go back to see what it's really asking. The question is, how much time did it take Dimitri to drive from home back to college? Okay, so is it asking for x or 6 minus x? Which one is it? It's asking for 6 minus x, right? Yeah, so good, you're reading the question. Okay. So it's asking for home to college, which is 6 minus x, which means we still have to do further calculations. You have to do 6 minus this value. So let's do it this way. 6 minus this value, which is 3 point, whatever that is. So we have that 6 minus x is equal to this. Okay, now when we try to say that this is our answer and go back, we try to put in, oh no, it's asking something else. It's asking us to express the time in hours and minutes. Okay, so hours, it's okay, it's 3 hours for sure. But then you have this extra 0.15175, which should be expressed in minutes. How do you do that? How do you express this much? So the question is, how many minutes is 0.15175 hours? Any idea? You multiply by 60. Yeah. Well, if you try dividing by 60, you'll immediately see that's too small. Something doesn't make sense. Okay? So the way you think is like 1 hour is like 60 minutes, right? So that means 0.15175 hours is equal to 0.15175 times 1 hour, right? But 1 hour is 60 minutes, so it's 0.15175 times 60 minutes. Okay, so that's the argument, okay? So let's take this one and plug it into the calculator, see what it says. Okay, I'll just enter and then 9.105 minutes. What's the closest in minutes? Nearest minute? Yeah. So it's 9.105 minutes. So the closest minute is 9 minutes. So it's 3 hours and 9 minutes. That's the answer. So let's go back, plug that in. 3 hours, 9 minutes. Submit question. All right. Okay, let's just do one more from models and applications. Assuming the speed of sound is 338 meters per second, how far away in kilometers did the light strike if it takes 4.9 seconds to hear the thunder after the flash? Okay, so this is about, again, speed, distance, time, right? And it's asking for the distance. Which of the formulas that we wrote tells you the distance? The middle one, distance is speed times time. So let's write that down. So to answer this, we are going to use that distance is equal to speed times time. And what's the speed? 338, right? And then what's the time? 4.9 seconds, right? So let's take that, plug it into the calculator, enter, and you get 1656.2 as the answer. Oh, but wait, what's the unit for this? This is in meters because, see, you multiplied seconds to this meters per second, right? So S and S cancels and you end up with the meters. But the question is asking in kilometers. How do you convert meters into kilometers? Well, divide by 1,000 is the correct answer, but here's another way to think about it. 1,000 meters is equal to what? 1 kilometers, right? So you can think of this as like you have 1,000.0, and then this point is moved 1, 2, and 3 steps left, so that it's like 1.0000, just like that. Okay? So if you use this idea of moving the decimals to the left by 3 steps, for example, if you had like 455 meters, that's going to be same as 455.0 meters, right? And that's going to be same as if you move the decimal 1, 2, 3 spaces left, you end up with 0.4550, right? That's how you convert from meters to kilometers. Is that good? Okay. So for here, all we have to do is move this dot 1, 2, 3 spaces. And what's the answer in kilometers? 1.6562 kilometers. Okay. All right. So here's a similar question. How far away is the canyon wall if it takes 4.9 seconds to hear the echo after you yell? Okay, well, we can use the same value here, right? The same idea, except that there's something about this. It's not the same answer, though. Why?
Oh, because that's there.
Yes. If you actually imagine what happens if you yell and get the echo, it has to go to the wall and it has to bounce back. And the total trip took 4.9 seconds, right? But you're not really measuring the total distance, are you? You're only measuring the time to the wall, right? So in this case, instead of saying it should be multiplied by 4.9, you multiply by half of that because the speed of sound is going to be the same going to and back. So therefore, the time that it took to go there to the wall will be same as the time that it will take to come back, right? So first what you're going to do is you're going to take 4.9 and divide it by 2, which is 2.45, right? So you take that, 2.45, and multiply it by 338. So it will be the same calculation, except that this one will be 2.45. Okay, so now let's put that into the calculator, see what happens. Now it's 828.1 meters. So it's going to be equal to 828.1 meters. What is this in kilometers? 0.8281 kilometers. All right. So you have these numbers. Let's just copy them and put it in here. So it should be here. And then over here, it should be 0.8281. Okay, submit question.